banned in the author's home country, Brazil. Is that right, Alejandro?
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could, it's a fascinating book, if you could tell us what is the book about, who the author is, and what became of the author?
Well, we're talking about the Brazilian educator, Paulo Freire, who was part of a generation in the late 60s and early 70s of scholars, intellectuals, writers, psychiatrists, activists, who wanted to change the structure of the world in the sense of it being a very unequal separation between those who have and those who have not, and not just in terms of material wealth, but also how we look at the world intellectually. And I'm talking about people like Franz Fanon, Simone de Beauvoir, Susan Sontag, Paulo Freire, Ernesto Che Guevara, who wanted to reshape, and Paulo Freire. Freire's contribution is in education. He was an educator who developed, I think, a much more effective method of not just teaching how to read and write, but to understand that to know how to read and write empowers you to take action to change the world that you have described now by being able to read and write. So it's actually quite dangerous and radical approach to one of the biggest problems we have, not just in Latin America where you have 60% illiteracy, but in the United States where you have 40 million people living in poverty and somewhat around 20% of the adults are illiterate. So we are in fact very similar to any society in the so-called underdeveloped world where you have 1% of the population controlling all the wealth and 99% scrambling to find some meaning or purpose or how to survive in their lives. And so some of the things that he proposes, first of all, of course, that literacy belongs to everyone, yes? So for example, very specifically in 1979, when the Sandinista revolution triumphed in Nicaragua, the very first act, one of the first acts, is to launch a literacy campaign to teach everyone in the country to read and write. Now that's empowering. I'll go back to that in a second. Same thing with Cuba. Cuba right now has the highest level of literacy than any country in the Western Hemisphere and maybe in the world. We're talking about 99.9%, right? Where a waiter can discuss with you the most complex political and historical circumstances, something that PhDs in this country cannot do, right? And so some of the things, for example, that he proposes is that the word must be imagined and realized in praxis, meaning that it's not just to read about liberty, but one must create the conditions for that. Another one of his, I think, important observations is that in our hemisphere, the campesino or the undocumented person or the person living in poverty must realize that they are the subject of the sentence. They must become the subject of the sentence. Those who make change, those who make history, as opposed to always being the object of history, right? The object of a sentence. So these are very sort of radical positions, which even though this book comes out in the early 70s and had great impact in Latin America, I think in any society where you have this uneven distribution of knowledge, and there's a reason why there's an uneven distribution of knowledge, right? Is so that those who don't have knowledge will acquiesce to whatever those who have the knowledge say is the way, the road, right? For example, this book was recently banned in, of all places, Arizona. Ironic, of course. Why? Because we claim to be the greatest technological society the world has ever known, but we're afraid of a book that teaches education, that talks about literacy, that changes totally upside down the paradigm of the teacher who knows, who speaks, and the student who's there just to listen just to memorize. But that paradigm applies to our society in general, in the sense that it is the leaders who speak, and our only role in the society is to be the passive listeners.
He implemented his, I guess, what would you call it, his methods in northeastern Brazil. Is that right? He went up there. This is the
yes, in the 60s and stuff. And if you know your history, which by the way, there's a reason why history is no longer taught in the United States, right? So we bring up something like Brazil in the 1960s, where torture was first developed in the modern sense in the 20th century by U.S. psychological experts, right? He had to flee there. He came to the United States, and I actually had a very rare opportunity to meet him at one of the workshops that he was doing, right? But it's because by keeping people ignorant, you're able to manipulate them, right? And basically tell them what to do. And so what I would like to do, instead of reading from him, which I think would defeat the purpose of what he's trying to do, I would like to propose something for us, which is taken from his method, that instead of us being those who have all the knowledge, and yourselves being simply the receptacle, right, the listeners, that we turn that paradigm around and present it this way, that you have something to teach us, and that we perhaps also have something to teach you, but the way we gain the knowledge is by presenting the problem, and then we can have a dialogue. And apparently I think the problem today is this question of, why do we ban books? What is the point of attempting, in our society, 21st century United States, censoring thoughts, right? Or this total attack, blatant attack on education, and let me just point out to you, when politicians attack education, it's not by accident, but a very deliberate plan. So the problem is there before us. Let's see if we can dialogue and see if we can come up towards something